Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Daniel Protz. I'm the founder and CEO of FlavorWiki. We're a digital insights platform that services the consumer goods industry around the world. And today, I'm going to talk to you about the changing landscape of consumer understanding and how digital, in the age of digitalization, is changing how we as producers of consumer goods can understand and react to our consumer customers. Next slide, please. As I'm sure you're all aware, the revolution of online selling of many different types of products and services has been going on since the early to mid 90s. But it's only been in recent years that many of the consumer goods that we deal with, particularly food and other household items, have really come into their own with respect to being sold online. Since 2017, Amazon in the United States and in the UK have been going into the grocery segment, and we see around the world more and more penetration in these different product categories to be sold online. And this has a significant impact in the way in which consumers can be understood, consumers can be engaged, and consumers can be used to extract information about how we can make products better. Traditionally, we relied on retailers and retail information, basically people going to the store, buying products, seeing things in the shelf. We had a captive audience of the user in the shelf, and we were able to determine what features were working with respect to selling products successfully or not. That is a completely different situation when you have an online retail platform. First of all, the number of products and product categories that are available to the consumer is much larger, and the consumer has the ability to see choice and to make decisions much quicker and with much more variety than they did when they were selling in the store. So this brings up a problem essentially for producers of these products, is that their organizations have been set up in order to understand consumers in the retail space rather than in the online space. And this means that new tools are needed in order to manage that situation. Next slide, please. So one of the main issues that brands will face today when they have to deal with consumers that are online is that they actually have much more nuanced demographics that they need to reach. So if you're dealing with a physical store, it's pretty easy to understand what is the demographic of the people in that neighborhood, what is their age, what is their general lifestyle. These things tend to be grouped with respect to where people live, particularly traditionally. So that was an easier thing to understand what to put in the shelf. If you have an online store, you actually have a lot more nuanced demographics that you can reach, and you need to understand those demographics. The other thing is that the full picture of understanding the consumer's purchase experience is much more complex. There's many different channels that are impacting the consumer's decisions. You have social media, you have online advertisement, you have television, you have even traditional advertisement in the physical space. So there's a lot more things that are impacting the consumer's decision to purchase a product or not. One of them as well, which is growing in importance, is the influence of friends and other influencers on social platforms. Right? And then finally, the world is moving much quicker. With the advent of online selling, small brands are actually able to start and prosper relatively easily. Previously, if they had to get past the grocery buyer or a physical buyer in a store in order to get it to the shelf and be sold, that constraint is no longer there. These companies can sell direct to consumer online on an online platform. They can use different social and marketing tools to market themselves, and they can be up and running relatively quickly. This means that researching products and researching consumers needs to be done much, much more quickly, which of course creates a strain on budget, and that's where cost comes into play in making research too expensive. Next slide, please. So what FlavorWiki is we're an agile online platform. So we work completely online to understand consumers at their point of consumption and purchase. So we're 100% digital, and we can operate all around the world. This allows us to get a real-time insight into what's happening from the consumer's perspective, why and how the consumer is interacting with their product, and why they may or may not be repurchasing that product. We utilize various techniques in machine learning and AI in order to analyze this data quickly so that we can make conclusions and recommendations to our clients about what to do about their product or how to reposition it. Next slide, please. The company was founded in 2017. We work around the world and are fully available in 14 languages and adding languages all the time. We do have a physical team. That team comes out of many of the important companies in the consumer packaged goods space and research space. So we're talking about companies like flavor houses, ingredient companies, packaged goods companies, and research companies like Ipsos. Next slide, please. Most of our customers are large brand holders. Because of our capability of working globally and doing this research across different countries in a comparative way, we are particularly useful for companies that are selling the same product or the same brand of products in multiple countries. We do have small and local clients, particularly online companies, but for the most part, we're supporting some of the major brand holders that I'm sure that you know and love around the world. We have a two-sided approach. Of course, we have to service our customers. The client is important, number one, but also a very close number one is our consumer user. So the data that we get and our capability to understand consumers is dependent upon our consumers being happy. And that's why it's very important for us to be a well-rated and well-trusted website, just like any other online retailer would be. Next slide, please. So what makes us different at FlavorWiki? There's a couple of things that we do very well because of the digital approach that we have. And one of those is our ability to reach demographics and specific demographics anywhere. I mentioned earlier how demographics can be grouped geographically. I mean, one of the simplest examples of this is people in Britain are from Britain. They live in Britain. So understanding those people in a local setting is easy. But if you're selling a product in Britain and you don't actually have your production capacity in Britain, how are you able to reach these demographics? The other thing is that demographics for different product categories are getting much more diverse. The world is a much more diverse place ethnically, and from a behavioral and background point of view, and we're able to reach those demographics because we can touch basically anybody that has a smartphone. As mentioned before, we can test in any language. We can internationalize our application in whatever language is needed. And our local digital marketing capability gets us to the point where we can even target specific purchase locations, such as, Heathrow Airport or a train station in Mumbai, to be able to understand what is going on at that specific location. We take a very different approach to building our communities or our panels. Most research companies deal with fixed panels, people that have volunteered to do product testing and do this on a regular basis. We actually are constantly growing our user base and have the target of having 70% of our users be brand new users every time we do a project. This is very important for keeping the insights fresh and also for being able to deal with so-called naive consumers who may not be as accustomed to answering questions about consumer products. And this is important for getting a very real-to-life picture of what their opinion is. Next slide, please. The other thing, as we mentioned before, that's incredibly important in today's world is to understand the full purchase experience of the user or the consumer. Many companies, particularly large multinationals, are set up in a way that they have different departments which focus on different aspects of the product delivery. Some companies may focus on the product itself, its composition, its inputs. Others may focus on package. Others may focus on how to price the product and put it in store. At FlavorWiki, we're able to evaluate all of these purchase drivers because we can map and follow the consumer through all the different experiences they have in experiencing that product, such that we can ask them to purchase a product, but then we actually are looking at what they're doing as they go to the store, as they interact with the shelf, or in an online space as they interact with the purchase of a product online. We have a technology that is patented that allows us to evaluate both hedonic or liking information and sensory, things like taste, aroma, emotional impact, and all of the other things that go into ultimately determining why does a particular person buy your product. And these vary by product, these drivers, and they also vary by market and by person. So in some cases, you may find that price is really the main driver of what the purchase decision is. In other cases, it may be an ethical concern, or it may be a concern about the inputs of the product, the ingredients. We're able to capture those, quantify them, and provide statistically relevant information about what are the most important things and how that product can be better created and delivered for the purpose of consumer delight. Part of this is capturing image and video. So sometimes the questions are not enough, or behavioral observation is not enough, and we have to rely on other forms of media. And of course, what's most important is that we are not doing this testing in a lab. There's definitely a place for lab testing in product development, but we really want to get the image and picture and reaction of the consumer when they're in their direct moment of purchase and consumption, because that is when they are in the emotional and mental state of making that decision. Asking them questions before or after that experience may not result in the most accurate information, and that's what we're looking for. Next slide, please. So price and speed is always an important driver of any research project. Speed to market is money. Speed to market can mean success. And so our technology and our operation is built for speed and efficiency. We are over twice as fast as any other traditional testing methodologies. We've developed both a procedure and a technology capability that allows us to analyze data quickly in real time. You can actually see results from an ongoing test as they are occurring. This often allows us to reach out to users or to consumers directly when they're answering questions. So it's a very collaborative and agile way of collecting information. You can also compare the information that you gather over time. So unlike fixed studies that are done in labs or in testing facilities, all of the information is stored digitally, which makes it comparable across different studies that you might run with us, or you can also upload and integrate past data that you might have from other tests that you've run previously in your company. Statistical and analytical software is directly built into the platform. Again, this saves time and allows for more nuanced and interactive analysis of the data. You can share this data on a PC across the web with your colleagues around the world and produce reports directly from our software platform. Next slide, please. We focus on working with consumer packaged goods companies, but we work across the delivery chain. So we do have solutions for the brand holders, people that are working in, as I mentioned before, areas such as R&D, marketing, shopper insights, and packaging for the actual brand production. But we also have several solutions that are used by suppliers. This means flavor, ingredient houses, and suppliers of the raw inputs that are going into those brand products. Very often in any consumer good, the collaboration between the supplier and the brand producer is a critical component, and there's a space for us to make that more efficient through good communication. And then finally, we have solutions for online sellers that allow them to get customer feedback and nuanced data for product innovation, what they would not usually, as a small company, be able to get or afford. Next slide, please. So what do we do for brand companies? So this would be companies like Mondelez, Coca-Cola, Nestle, companies that are making actual products, and they're putting those into the retail segment. We do what are called traditional market mappings. This is a statistical model of what are the drivers of preference and purchase behavior. So what in that product category is making consumers purchase that product in a particular space or market? What are the important features that need to be there for success? This is a type of study that's often run in an innovation setting when you're making a new product. When you have products already in the market and you want to understand how you can improve them, or whether or not you have a problem that's causing your sales to be impacted, this is where we use tests called benchmarking, which is a comparative test done by consumers evaluating various aspects of the product and purchase experience so that we can compare them to understand what are the areas where you're winning and what are the areas where you can improve. We also study shopping behavior, which is to understand where and how users interact with the product at the point of purchase, either online or in store. We've done a lot of work in post-launch check. So if you're launching a new product into the market, you don't really know how it's going to perform. you might have to wait several months in order to get purchase information and information from the retailer. We're able to get immediate feedback from consumers directly the first time that they interact with your product. We also do concept testing earlier in the innovation cycle and quality checking. It's possible with our platform to gather data over time and correlate this to your consumer feedback information or even your manufacturing data to understand if you've got a quality problem in your supply chain. Next slide, please. The way our testing procedure works is that we have an online community, as I mentioned before, that's always growing. We will expose the possibility of participating in a questionnaire or a product test to our community. Those users buy the product. We're often tracking that experience across the purchase cycle. They answer questions in the application directly, and then we process that data in real time to provide it to our customers. Next slide, please. So when it comes to suppliers and distributors, this is a place where we've really innovated quite a bit together with some large ingredient companies working internationally. We've built tools for evaluating prototypes in both the customer setting and in the internal setting. So in the innovation cycle with any product, it's often the suppliers that are bringing many of the innovation ideas to the brand holder. But the supplier needs to present these innovation ideas to the customer, to their customer, which is the brand holder. This often happens in a setting such as a sales meeting. It can happen in a digital setting where the buyer or the brand company is evaluating different prototypes in a video call. And our software can be used to facilitate this communication and gather real quantitative and actionable data from the brand customer that can be used to help the supplier better serve that customer and potentially win more briefs. Next slide, please. We call this customer interaction, and it's basically that you connect with the brand. So you set up a sales meeting in a virtual meeting or in a physical meeting. We use our software together with you to build a complete evaluation experience with them. And then the data is available in real time, either to colleagues in a centralized location or more appropriately for discussion during that meeting so you can have a data-driven conversation about the prototypes or samples. Many times, and we've heard this from many different salespeople in different industries, when they take something to a customer, the information that they get about the liking of that product or whether or not it's suiting the needs of the customer is usually qualitative. It's sometimes just notes that are written on paper, or in many cases, it's just verbal. And this is very difficult to aggregate information over time and build a better understanding of what the customer and finally the end consumer is needing from the supplier's point of view. Next slide, please. And then finally for online sellers. So online sellers, it's a very new industry. So online sellers have really never had to collect feedback from consumers about the product that they're selling. We all know about things like Amazon reviews and star reviews. These are typically reviews of general satisfaction, and their information is usually something like a free-form comment, which is sometimes useful for other consumers that are trying to make decisions about that product, but those evaluations are not comparable. And this makes it very difficult to use that data from a product producer's or marketer's point of view to make actionable decisions. So with our software, we can turn those customer feedback interactions into something which is more nuanced and actionable and can actually be used to collect data from the consumer user in order to more appropriately suggest different products for them or to even innovate different product lines that are going to meet the consumer's needs. Next slide, please. The great thing about being an online seller is that as this data is being collected, you're also, together with us, acquiring new customers for your product through our platform of hundreds of thousands of consumers in your market, but you're also figuring out how you can drive traffic to stores where your products are sold, and then finally, as mentioned before, getting product feedback on what you can improve. Next slide, please. So we have a number of case studies which we would be happy to review with anyone who's interested. We do interactive case studies. These demos are done in our software, so you can see actually the real data that we've collected and the insights that was able to drive to get to the goals of the customer. And anyone who would be interested in that can contact me at info@flavorwiki.com, or I think that there'll probably be information about how to contact us through the website of the event. That's all I have for today, and thank you very much. I'm happy to answer any questions.